expect the 29th film to do any better with his character.
I read the very early interviews of Greta Gerwig who talk about the way Joe and Laurie have this relationship that is not romantic, and that gave me hope. Mm-hmm. But then I read the movie guide for the new film, and then she kind of goes back with it. I think she's like a Joe and Laurie shipper, which is why Laurie doesn't have an arc.
I think they were doing okay with Amy and Laurie.
Yeah.
For up until the Europe part, because I think setting up their relationship is pretty good. Like I think I said before in my review, I didn't like how they contrived that with Amy's caning being the setup for that, because I think that's actually a very awful scene that's supposed to ignite. It's supposed to be a scene of righteous anger, and I didn't like that it was supposed to be comical. Yeah, but of course, like I liked that they did some work on establishing their relationship beforehand. Like, you know, I'd be okay with this. And, you know, and in Europe, they have that discussion. I think, you know, Amy gives him a talk, and then Amy also doesn't want to play second fiddle to Joe. I was like, okay, this is fine. But then, you notice that Laurie never has to do any work for Amy.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
I always found this a very crucial part of their arc, right? Because Amy even encourages him in the film to be a productive member of society. Yeah. But then he never does any of that. That aspect of their story is left hanging and just incomplete. And then it's like Beth's death sped up the relationship instead of him actually putting work in, which really sat like badly with me.
Yeah, that's something that really bothered me in the film, and it kind of reflected Joe's character, because she's not given a character arc either.
Yeah, no, yeah. She's not. I mean, I said in my review, her arc is flat.
Yeah. Professor Bear. Like, if we compare that to the 1994 film, Joe has a full arc there. Yeah, that's the way it goes in the book.
Despite Laurie not having much of a characterization, maybe not much more in the 1994 film, I think I liked that they actually acknowledged that he went away to actually better himself.
That's
before
true.
Coming back to Amy.
It doesn't really build up their relationship as much as the 2019 film, but Laurie has some sort of an arc in that movie.
Yeah, I think so. I guess now that we're talking about 1994, I think he doesn't have. I think you said in your blog post, we don't get a sense of his temper and how he would clash with Joe, which is why we don't always buy that they would kill each other.
Yeah, that's the same with all adaptations, really.
That is true.
Yeah, I mean, Louisa makes a very big effort in the book. Like, she describes that Laurie has a temper and that he has these violent outbursts sometimes. And Joe has them as well.
You get the sense that Laurie is very subservient to Joe, which he kind of is, but he also clashes with her in other ways. But and they never really represent that.
No.
And I think in 1994, Christian Bale is really wonderful, and for the character that they wrote. But I guess a lot of people have accused the film of making that relationship with Amy creepy. Which underdeveloped maybe, but I never found it creepy particularly.
I think it's because Amy is like 12 in the first book and Laurie is 16, but it's just 4 years difference and they're not romantically together in that way. But then people also say that Joe and Fredrik are creepy, but Joe is like 24 when they meet. I never saw that creepy. And it was written in the 19th century. Most marriages were marriages with age gaps, and Louis had a thing for older guys.
Yeah, back then it was super common. Yeah,
for most people there was an age gap in the marriages. Yeah, or in relationships in general.
Yeah, because families generally wanted their daughters to marry established gentlemen, right, who already had a living. And generally it would take time for a guy to actually establish his career and stuff, and at that point he would marry somebody. So it's not shocking at all that you would have age gaps like that.
If you think about some of the recent films, for example, the new Emma, in the original Jane Austen's Emma, the Knightley and Emma age difference is 19 years. In the new film, the actor is much younger looking.
Yes.
Yeah, they do that nowadays. Male lead is hired to be like young-looking guy, even if they're actually a bit older.
It's funny because in the 2019 film they did that with Professor Bear, right?
Yeah.
Even though they weren't gonna do like the proper arc anyway, but
no.
They made him.
But then if I think about Amy and Laurie in the 1994 film, I don't think it's creepy. But if you think about how people could actually avoid that, why can't they actually hire a 16-year-old guy to play Laurie in the first part of the book? But people complain about everything. Doesn't matter who we are going to cast play Laurie.
In the 2019 film, I felt like they had a bit of the issue with Florence Pugh looking older in all of her scenes, whereas Laurie just looked young in all of his scenes. Age is just that you could not quite buy Amy or Florence Pugh as a child, and you could never buy Timothée Chalamet as an adult. Whatever their real life age is, it just kind of doesn't work in terms of that visual contrast between them.
Yeah.
I mean, people have pointed out to me that Christian Bale was only 20 when he played Laurie, but he's able to transition from being a teenager into an adult. So it's sometimes, even if the real age matches, sometimes that's the thing about casting. You really need these people to pass off. You need a certain person to pass on at different ages. And it's weird because I haven't seen the 1933 film, but I noticed that both the 1949 and 1994 don't pay that much attention to Amy and Laurie's arc. In fact, I think 1949 less so. It's not even there.
No. There's this scene before Laurie goes to propose Joe, and Amy's looking at Laurie like with sad expression on her face. I think that's the only scene with them together. And then there's the end when they end up together. That's the...
Hello, friends. It is Niina from the Little Woman podcast. Just to let you all know that the Little Woman podcast episode transcripts are now available as books. You can find them as paperbacks and ebooks. They are wonderful reading for all the fans of Louisa May Alcott. You can find all the links from the description. And now, back to the show.
Arc in that movie. Laurie's proposal is extremely romanticized in the film, and it's really romanticized in the 1933 film and 1994 film. 2019 film did better, but then it completely erased Frederick's character, so it kind of sucks.
Laurie in the 1949 film, I think I recall his proposal being pretty angry, and I think that was kind of the only time we could ever really buy into his character
having a temper. It's the same in 1933 film. Laurie has a bit of a temper in it, but after that it's just really flat. In the next adaptations.
I watched the proposal scene in the 1933 with Katharine Hepburn. I think, at least she has that sort of line like, I can't love you like you want. But I don't think Joe in 1949 is probably my least favorite. She never really handles scenes like that with much sensitivity. I don't recall her handling it with, or being very in depth about why she can't go with Laurie. My problems with the 1949 film is that they have no balls to do a lot of things. Like Amy's caning, they kind of come up right against it and then back down from it. Do you remember that? Oh, when she gets her hand beaten for having.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so they have the teacher like almost hit her hand, and then he doesn't.
Oh do it. Yeah. I really like Elizabeth Taylor as Amy. But the problem with that movie is that they kind of make her the joke, and I don't like that because that's not something that the book does. So it kind of makes this Amy against Joe position again there, because it shouldn't be there. It romanticizes Laurie the same way as it does with Mr. Bear's character, so it becomes this Laurie versus Fritz, and then Amy versus Joe, and it's just not the way the book goes. Yeah, because the book makes very clear that Amy's really perfect for Laurie and Fritz perfect for Joe. I still haven't seen an adaptation that does it the way the book does.
Yeah, that's true. I think they did Professor Bear pretty well in the 1949.
Yeah, they actually beat up that relationship pretty well.
Yeah, I appreciated.
He's Italian, but I'm going to overlook that.
Yeah, we should probably save this for the professor
Yeah.
video. But yeah, no, I liked that I like it when adaptations develop that relationship. I guess some people will argue and say, oh, well, you can't really develop some of these scenes because of runtime, right? Because there's no, there isn't really, time to do these things. But I feel like there's not really an excuse sometimes when you try and leave arcs, like when you kind of have the really incomplete arcs for everybody. It's kind of like how the 2019 film tried to do sort of this Meg arc, dealing with poverty in her marriage, but then they just kind of slapped on a happy ending for that, and then they're just like, we're not going to explore it. We're not going to have like any sort of
it was left half developed. Yeah. But I think that happens a lot with Meg's character.
In the beginning, I liked that they were trying to do something with her.
Yeah.
But, they ended up not really properly dealing with her in a way that I would like, because first of all, Emma Watson, as we've discussed, can't carry off that kind of, quiet strength that Meg has. When you bring in something like a marital issue, like a serious marital issue, I don't think you should just be like, oh, I'm just going to sell it, the silk, and that's it. You didn't make the issue go away.
There was a version of the script, one of the older version, where her meltdown was included, but then it wasn't added into the movie, and I heard that it was because of Emma Watson's performance, and that James Norton had to carry out many of the scenes. It goes back to the casting, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we've discussed this before, but I think, the casting of Emma Watson was very much based on her accomplishments outside of acting, rather than
very true.
Her actual acting accomplishments, because she plays the same character in every film that she's in. I do admire her as an activist, but I have not been impressed with her since Harry Potter. Having recently watched the 2017 film, not film, miniseries, did you think they did any better with the Laurie arc, or no? Because I don't think he really put in much work either, but what did you think?
I think he was very idealized in that version, once again. He's a very melancholic character there. Laurie, the books, he can be very uplifting and very funny sometimes.
Like I said, his interactions with Amy, they were able to build up that relationship a bit more. They acknowledged the musical side of his
character, that was nice.
Which is an improvement. I think they tried to get in some of his clashes with Jo when their characters kind of go head to head sometimes. I think they do a bit of that, but when he meets up with Amy, it's kind of like their relationship comes together. They come together, but we don't see Amy, getting him to put his life in order. Because I feel, again, that is such an important part of the story, right? Because that Amy is the one who can get him to be a productive person.
Yeah, Amy's portrayal in the series, it's really a villainization. It was once again putting Amy against Jo. For once, they adapted my favorite chapter, which calls. Amy, she gets to go to Europe, and Jo doesn't get to go to Europe, because Jo is actually really rude towards Aunt March. Yeah,
absolutely.
And in that particular version, it was framed so that we should admire Jo for being rude to Aunt March. And Jo is like a feminist hero because of that. And then Amy, actually, she's quite happy that Jo doesn't get to go. But then in the book, it's the opposite. Amy's really horrified by Jo's actions, and she feels ashamed by it. It's not something that she's secretly glad about. And then when she finds out that she's chosen and Jo is not chosen, she's really, really sad for Jo. She really feels bad for her. I think 2019 film had that part done much better.
So with the Jo and Amy rivalry, the problems I had with the 2017, I had similar issues with 2019, where I felt like Amy and Jo were somehow in competition over Laurie, which I don't like that dynamic.
And that doesn't happen in the book, because Jo never wants to be with Laurie romantically. She's very clear about it since the beginning.
Yeah, the only reason she would ever consider accepting Laurie is if Laurie accepted her again, and just because she was lonely. That was literally the only reason. I think in 2017, when I saw Jo was just she's engaged to Laurie, what? And I was like, no, you're not gonna. They're not supposed to be in competition over this guy. It's not.